Welcome to Spaghetti Launchers, the world-building podcast where we throw spaghetti at the wall and it is up to you what sticks. I am Kyle.
I am Ethan. Today's episode, we will be discussing sacred spaces. Any space in your world or in a world that is demarcated, set aside, special from others for any reason that you might have in your world. It's up to you to decide.
Sacred. You all know the definition of sacred. If you don't, get a dictionary.
Or go read Mircea Eliade's Sacred and Profane. Mircea Eliade is a religious theorist that wrote a whole book about the role of sacred spaces in the life of religious humans and what it did, how it created an anchor point in the world, a demarcation between the sacred and the profane. Very good book.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, as we were like trying to think about what are the fictional sacred spaces, and it's like, well, in reality, they're so obvious in the real world. And I think that's where it all, like every major religion has a bundle of sacred spaces, some of which may have inspired our ideas today. One of which definitely inspired one of my idea today. But like in a fictional world, they're a little bit less common. I think they're a little bit less in your face.
Yeah, I think they're less. Or I think they're
more common in like an RPG where it's like you're exploring and you come upon it.
Yeah.
In like in a discrete story, you wouldn't really talk about a sacred space as much because unless it's like about religion or about sacred things, you'd kind of just gloss over it, or it just might be in the background. It's not a place you'd go to because it's usually a space where not a lot can happen by like the nature of
like
the rules.
Protected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the rules of a sacred space are don't fuck with this.
Yeah, it's protected. It's special. It's demarcated, set aside. I mean, any church, any house of religious worship, I think qualifies as a sacred space.
Yeah.
If you want to get really deep into the theory of it, the home is a sacred space because it reflects the... Right, exactly. So I don't want to get into this, everything is a sacred space. But really what we're looking for are places where there are distinct sacred spaces. A great one would be like the statues or the monuments to the Daedra in Skyrim. Right?
Oh,
like,
that's an interesting one.
Those are very clearly sacred spaces to the people that worship those Daedra. They're the Daedric princes, I mean.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the Dagon.
Yeah, like any like small shrines are cool as sacred spaces. Like little like roadside shrines that you may run into. Like that is like a little like a miniature sacred space.
Yeah.
I like because they're often big and bombastic. And the lightning rounds I was throwing around are like my initial idea was like, how can I get super small? And a lightning round that I'm not going to talk about, but it was like, oh, what if it was just like at the bottom of a well? Was like a sacred space. Something happened there, and no one's ever been to the bottom of the well. Yeah. This isn't my lightning round. I have a different
actually a great idea.
I know.
That's super cool.
But just, the idea of like a tiny little spot where something happened, and we don't really know, we don't really know what it was.
Or it doesn't even have to be necessarily where something happened, but like in Thai Buddhism, for example, when we were just in Thailand for our honeymoon, we learned that a lot of houses will have small little houses outside of them that are little homes for the domestic spirits.
That's cool.
And it's like those are little things that you care for and you give little offering. Like, that's it happened, right? Like that can be a little sacred space, right?
Big fan.
There are places that we we hold Gettysburg, right? Like the battlefield of Gettysburg.
Oh yeah, battlefield's an interesting sacred space.
Battlefields are big ones, right? Like
like how many people make the trek to Normandy?
Right. Yeah.
Where it's like it's going to Mecca. Mecca, a sacred space for very significant religious religions, and then it's like Normandy, just like going to a blank beach. I've been to Gettysburg. It's nothing now. It's a museum and just some fields.
Right.
Not that interesting, honestly, but it is a sacred space for a lot of people to go like pay respects.
Yeah.
Any like patriotic locations.
Absolutely.
Like the National Archives, go and like you're in the room with the Constitution. That's like a sacred space for many people.
The White House.
Yeah. Like any memorial, a graveyard is a sacred space.
Absolutely.
People
don't love graveyards. I mean, we should do that as an episode. I fucking love graveyards. Took a whole course on it in college. It was one of the best courses I took in college. It was so good.
Of course, you took a class on graveyards. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about graveyards one day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so why don't we get into some noodles here? And give me your description of your sacred space, sir. What's this menu?
Reverse eruption.
Okay. Not what I expected out of a sacred space, but I'm here
You'll
for
say
it.
It will become clear.
Yeah.
Was about to... Ooh.
The Great Parlay.
The Great Palais. I like it. I think you should go first, my friend.
Okay.
Please do.
All right.
Start talking now.
Stop it in this accent now. Okay. So I got obsessed with this idea of multiple temples joining together in a space where the like courtyard, the space in between them all, is the sacred space. And
what were your menu words again?
the Great Parlay.
The Great Parlay.
And what I was thinking about was a big battlefield of the gods. That would be too big of a space. So I thought, what instead about a spot where the gods used to meet, maybe currently meet, a physical space where they will parlay, and all of these temples have built a temple around it to insulate it from the outside world, from other things that are happening, to say, the rabble can't get in here, people aren't supposed to be like looking in, this is a sacred space, this is a private space. And it is like I was thinking about like the Dome of the Rock. Like there is a big dome over the top of all of it. So it's like, I was thinking like, you have like 12 temples, each of which have an outwardly, like they face out onto like a street. And then they all have another entrance, exit, whatever, going into this grand courtyard. And nothing is really in the courtyard because it's the gods take up the space there when they come. Yeah. So it's used as like a pass through for people in these temples, like for the clergy to like go over to different temples, because they're all like a big pantheon. So they're all buds. Yeah. There's no hostility in this situation. I didn't want that. Just having this space where it is sacred to all of the clergy and to the gods, and no normal person is allowed in because it's preserved for the gods. It is preserved and reserved for the gods to come and meet for whatever reasons they might need to.
The Agadra.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Look, man, I think we've been on a pretty strong kick recently of things that fit into a world that can exist as really meaningful, very descriptive, very evocative aspects of a world without necessarily being the central focus of a story.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, it's not the central focus of a story.
It could be. It could be. I mean, like, think about in Critical Role, they have Vasselheim, which is sort of like this great city that sort of operates under a similar structure.
Yeah. The way that I could see it fitting into a story is like a place that is like, because it's physically large because of what it is, because it's 12 temples encasing a massive space, because it's got to fit some big people. And maybe not be that big. It could be small. I don't know. It could be like literally these gods come in as the size of humans, and thus it's just a regular courtyard size. I don't like, you can play with that. But regardless, if it's got these 12 temples, it is a huge part of a city. So I think of it as like this landmark that you keep passing. Like, say you're doing a TTRPG, you keep walking by this place, and it's like, well, I don't want, like, and it keeps being like evoked by the DM, like, hey, there's this place. You're passing by the Agadra. You're passing by the Agadra. Like, it's like just past the Agadra. Like you keep using it as this focal point, and so people keep going, well, what's inside there? Like, can we go in there? It's like, no, you're not allowed in there. No one's allowed in there.
Right.
And then you get to that point later on where people have built up curiosity, and then you have some sort of quest or some sort of interaction that leads you to go into the Agadra. Yeah. And then you get to, wax eloquently.
Kyle's doing great.
Of all the words,
Kyle's having a hard day.
Of all the words to have
eloquently
to have said that, eloquent was the best one. Eloquently. I eloquently said eloquent. Like you can wax poetically about all these descriptors of this place, and I think that's the cool deliverable, is this place that you're like, oh, what is this thing? And then it's boom, you get to go there eventually, and then you get to like really have it be this memorable moment, and then it goes back to the background. Yeah. And it's not relevant. Like, it isn't, like, unless it's relevant in that someone's going to try to assassinate the gods. I don't know. Or the gods are like, it's like the Agadra has been destroyed. And that was the conduit to the gods who no longer can come down in their mortal form and talk to people.
And maybe that was also the source of magic in the world. And so if that happens, then all magic disappears. You could also, if you were doing this in an RPG setting, I'm thinking specifically about D&D, build in some mechanic where one player can go in, where like the cleric can go in, but nobody else can. And so you just keep making everybody else leave the table and then
funny.
Come back.
Yeah,
and so
fun.
only one person knows, and like you work out a deal with them.
Yeah.
You could even do like a waypoint thing where maybe there are temple. You know, you said each of the 8 temples have temples at the Agadra, and then maybe there are temples out in the world. You know, I love my interdimensional doorway thing where every other temple out in the world has a gate into the home base of their specific temple.
Yeah.
But only, again, the cleric can go through them. So they're like, okay, bye, I'll see you later. And then you have to, the rest of the party has to walk the 200 miles back to the Agadra, but they just interdimensional doorway there.
That's pretty funny. Okay, but I was just saying that I was thinking about what if kind of pivot off of the like this is a preserved meeting space and instead make it more of a Agadra in that this is a common place for the clergy for maybe religion is very potent in this place. Clerics are really important and they're very active and they're very communicative among each other and cooperative. So this is like a place where they mingle and they interact, and there's like tables for them to sit down and like and share drinks together, and there's games, and there's like activities, there's shows, there's like performance, there's like this
It's their home.
Take the idea of an agora and make it very literally, this is the agora for only the clerics to exist within, and it's like it is a private club.
It's a private pluralistic club.
Yeah, it's a private, because all these temples are like all at one pantheon, so they all have a common cause in a way, but then they all also, I don't know, and maybe it is also a meeting place for the gods, but then the rest of the time it is used as just this hangout and like a country club for the clerics.
That's how a lot of pantheons, a lot of polytheistic pantheons actually would have functioned. The way that we conceive of them in typical fantasy media is
like a hostility between them.
Hostility between them, or it's more like a collection of monotheisms instead of, you're like, oh, I'm a priest of Zeus and I don't worship any other gods. Like, no, you'd still like say a prayer to Poseidon before you went out on a boat trip, right?
Yeah, like you're just like, I serve Zeus most of my time, but everybody else is also important.
Because they're
all
still
real.
Also a god, right? Versus in D&D, it's like, oh, this is the god that I worship. It's like, no, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
This is a great way of expressing that complexity without making it overly burdensome.
Yeah. Just to show this is a cooperation and they're all linked.
Right.
And that, you're going to take you're at the temple to Zeus out in the wild. You take the little portal back to the Agadra.
The lightning rail.
So just so you can go to the temple of Athena.
Right.
We have to go meet with the priest of Athena. We'll just use this temple of Zeus. Will get us there because they're all linked together in a way because of the nature of it.
Right. It's a cooperative environment. Maybe it's not explicitly like we do everything together, but it's not hostile. It's like we have free trade, so to speak.
Yeah, basically.
I think that I really like that. I like the opportunity for discussion, collaboration, again, complexity without it being overly burdensome.
Yeah.
I like that it's a little bit more historically accurate than what we get at a lot of typical fantasy media.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me happy.
I did this for you, Ethan.
Thanks.
I just want to make you happy.
I know. You do.
That's the Agadra. Now, Ethan.
Yes.
Let's look into this reverse eruption that happened.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I know you are. I try not to confuse you, but I do a lot anyway. So I was a religion major.
No way.
Yeah, I know, right? Shocking. So I went back and I started reading that Mircea Eliade stuff again that I was talking about in the beginning. I went back, I looked at the definitions of sacred and profane, and started rereading some of the theory and some of the papers that I wrote. And there was something in there that I like.
All of it?
I do. I like all of it. I came across a word he mentioned called hierophany, which is a manifestation or an eruption of the sacred into the normal world, right? Okay. And so many sacred spaces throughout history and in the formation of religion have been about, this is where the sacred manifested in our world, that this is where the holy manifested in our profane world, right? This is the burning bush. This is, and God instructed Moses to remove his sandals, right? Like this is the Bodhi tree where Buddha attained nirvana, right? Where these things manifested in our profane world. And I was like, well, I like that phrase, the eruption of the sacred into our world. And I was like, well, what if it were the other way?
Where like the normal erupts into the sacred world?
Yes.
So if all of a sudden God's just chilling in heaven and like a regular old alarm clock just pops up on his table and starts going off?
Something like that. Or more accurately, where humanity figured out a way to puncture, or the base world figured out a way to puncture
the divine,
the veil between the worlds.
Oh, interesting.
And it became a sacred space. I'm not saying even the gate still has to be open.
Yeah.
But it is a sacred space dedicated to the reverence of humanity's capabilities. Uh-huh. Similar to the way that we would think about a tower, right? Like, look at this great, incredible thing that humanity's built.
Yeah.
Right. But take that to what in religion and religious terminology is mostly about, like giving life meaning and being and saturating the world with being. It's like, no, suddenly there is significance to humanity's efforts beyond this normal physical place. Now it's like we are the masters of our fate. Mm-hmm. And it was the start of something here.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I mean by reverse eruption, right? Like normally sacred space is denoted by where sacred intruded or manifested in our world.
Yeah. But you're saying it's like, well, we're saying, hey, gods,
deities, other realms.
We're
Call
here.
it whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, right? yeah. But I mean,
but it's like
trying to be less academic, more practical in the terminology here.
Fair. But it's like,
and it reminds me a lot of Exandria Unlimited Calamity. Critical Role's best product. The best D&D live play ever put out, where they really explore the idea of humans being at the point where they think they're more powerful than the gods. They say what we've done is just as important. We are like, this is sacred. This whole this holy adventure we've done, or endeavor we've done, that is like this technology, this advanced product that we've created. This is more important than you. Mm-hmm. This is more important than the divine. What you probably get with a lot of like Silicon Valley execs who are like, this product is the next god. We have created a supercomputer that will change the world, and like the way that people kind of insert their ego into something. Mm-hmm. And that feels like what this is like humanity putting their ego out there and saying, now fuck you, we're in charge.
But it's real. Because they actually have done it.
Yeah.
And now I think what is interesting about what you just said. All of it. What is interesting about what you just said is that I had sort of stopped there at the idea of it, right? Mm-hmm. The fallout of that is that suddenly every human activity gains much more significance. Right, because it's all leading us toward. We're all building. Everything's leading us again towards doing this, towards this incredible ability. Right, this incredible task, this incredible achievement. Would this lead us basically to like monuments to mediocrity? Like just by being a basic human, you are.
No,
you don't think?
No, because I think
would it make it harder?
Make it harder. I think it would. it is creating the pressure cooker on humanity to say, you need to do more. You need to go beyond that. Like,
Yeah.
this is now the benchmark that you're looking to conquer. It's like, if your parents are like, Olympic athletes and, neurosurgeons, and like, they're not just going to be like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. And like, we'll love you no matter what. They're going to say, you're going to do exactly what we did, or better. And that's the only thing that matters. I'm being hyperbolic there, obviously,
But I think it works.
But yeah, it's like, people are going to be pushed further now in this case.
It's like, what is the, what's the NASA motto? Ad aspera per aspera?
I don't know.
I forget exactly, but it translates to like, to the stars through hardship.
Okay, yeah.
And like, it's sort of that vibe. Like, it is a monument to, that feeling, that drive, that very human thing. But it's like, it actually worked, and humans achieved divinity in its own right. And
yeah. So to take it slightly less theoretical,
this might not be that original now that I'm talking it out.
Yeah. So to remove the theory a little bit, and let's get to the practical. Is this a specific place you can go?
It is a specific place you can go. It is the location where the breach first occurred.
Okay.
I don't know if the breach has happened since then in other places. I don't know how long it was open for. It is the place where it first occurred. It would be basically like if we turned, what's the name of the Big Hadron Collider?
CERN?
Thank you. It would be like if we made a monument out of CERN.
Well, to be fair, it's at CERN. I think that's like the university or something, or the city.
I forget. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, like the Big Hadron Collider, yeah.
Right. If we were to make a monument out of that after they achieved nuclear fusion for the first time.
Yeah.
That's what it would be the equivalent of.
Okay. So if you go there, what is it now? What's there?
That's a good question. I imagine it's a bit, I think by this point in time, the science and the study has been done, because I imagine there was a ripple effect, the saturation of the energy through the Great Tear, right, where it scorched, plants and earth nearby, maybe the divine light was harsh, and right, like all that stuff has been cleaned, people have been studied, it's been preserved. It's part of there's a museum feel to it, but the part explicitly around exactly where it went is where the tear occurred is still protected. So I'm imagining sort of like the Western Wall in Israel, where past a certain point, there's no commerce, there's no nothing, right? They divide the genders, men on one side, women on the other, right? Like, it is like, this is a very sacred spot, but then there is a very clear threshold beyond which it's like, nope, this is where the vendors start showing up again.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of drawing like your idea from the library, the libraries episode, I forget which one it was, where it's
called The Libraries.
No, I know, but I forget what your library was called.
Oh, I don't remember.
But you had a combination of a museum and the actual space where the scroll was.
Yeah.
And I liked that, having both there.
Okay. So it's interesting because you've kind of done the thing that also makes the most, what I would logically assume would happen in this context is that it is not like a fervently religious space, because it is not a it is like a sterilized environment in many ways. Like you because what you're describing, it wasn't that it was like people are flocking here, or this is a destination for like, pilgrimage.
I think it could be. I haven't gotten there yet, but
Okay.
I mean, pilgrimages, without getting too theoretical, pilgrimages and holidays are attempts to basically recreate that sacred time, right?
Yeah.
The time at which the sacred thing happened. Mm-hmm. So there could very reasonably be a holiday at which you do flock to the space, to the Great Tear. I'm just calling it the Great Tear right now for no other idea. To the Great Tear, and go through some sort of physical ritual where you emulate the piercing of the veil with a needle or something, right? Maybe it's something you go and you wear torn clothing, right? That's something like that. You could very easily make a ritual and a holiday and a pilgrimage out of it.
Who controls
Again, I
this?
hadn't gotten that far.
Yeah. Who controls this space?
This is not a government-controlled space. I'm going to say that it's got a scientific clergy.
This is like it's like a university.
Yeah. So it is through knowledge, almost like the Vulcan Science Academy. Like that is the most respected and revered place in all of Vulcan, on all of Vulcan, right?
Okay, so let's take a step back and let's frame it as what we got here. This is the tear,
The Great Tear.
the Great Tear.
Excuse me.
That was the scientific and or arcane advancement of the age that showed that they could pierce through the veils of planes of existence into the gods, wherever, whatever you want to say. Now there's a university built upon this.
That's good. Yeah,
because
that's better.
Yeah, because what you're doing is creating a sacred space that is not about religion,
But about knowledge.
but about knowledge, and
Correct.
that's
much better.
And turning that pursuit of knowledge into the religion of this place.
Correct.
So then
Ad astra per aspera.
So then this university becomes the Vatican.
Effectively.
It is a protected space that you need permittance into, and it contains a whole lot within it. This is the way that I think of it. It's like there are layers and catacombs, and there's a labyrinthian maze of archives and storage of all types of artifacts and knowledge over generations from before the Great Terror and after. This is a place where they're worshiping knowledge
By studying.
and they're worshiping what they have achieved to try to continue to push it. And maybe they are, but maybe they also said, we need to not do that again. Specifically, like we have created this and we will maintain the Great Tear, but we have the knowledge and the wisdom to know that we should not push it further.
It's dangerous. It's unviable.
We have created it. We have created a stable version of it, but to push further is a potential problem because it might destroy us all. And we are smart enough to know that. And now we're pursuing all other types of knowledge around that, and we are worshiping our achievement, and we're venerating humans for what we've done.
For doing it and recognizing that this is our potential, but also recognizing that this is our potential. Like, we got to be really careful here that we do not do something like this again. That, like, we are here to study. We have
to be careful. We have to know the line.
Exactly. And here is the line. The line is literally the tear.
We crossed the line perfectly.
Right.
We got to the perfect edge of where that line is.
And we don't understand why.
And
or how, I mean, rather.
No, we know how. I think that needs to be essential to this.
Yeah.
Okay. They absolutely know how they got there. They just know, don't get back up to that point.
Yeah.
Or else you damn the whole world.
Yeah. God, making it a university is so smart. That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. And it would be very similar to, like, you use the word arcane, which made me think of it. I mean, so imagine hundreds and thousands of years into the future of that world, they've made a shrine to Jace and Victor. And that
from the show Arcane.
From the show Arcane, and that spot where...
And the game League of Legends.
Where they discovered Hextech, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, because that fundamentally changed the entire... It's like, that would be...
I mean, it's a shrine to Albert Einstein.
Right, absolutely.
It's a shrine to Robert Oppenheimer. It's a shrine to Aristotle. It's a shrine to knowledge. It's a shrine to the major...
I think Oppenheimer is probably the best allegory.
Because it's literally pushing the boundaries of what humans are able to achieve. And the threat.
Should achieve, right?
Yeah, it is like, here is the danger we can create for ourselves.
Right. It's like, again, going back to our favorite scene of, what do you mean a non-zero chance that this will destroy the world?
What do you mean I should watch the movie again.
So
It is very good. Best Picture. Woo-woo.
deserved all the wins.
But yeah, it is. It's a perfect analog of what those guys achieved, making that into a sacred space. It's if Los Alamos became a sacred space.
Correct.
If it, much like you referenced CERN earlier, if that becomes a sacred space, and if you merge that with a Mecca, a Vatican, a sacred city, a space that is like larger than that, that is still used for other purposes, and is like, well, you kind of need, like, we don't just let people in here just for the hell of it.
Right.
Well, the Vatican to a degree, because you go to the museum and shit.
Well, you can go and pray there too.
I've been to mass there. We snuck in. It was great, and then we had to go catch a train, so we had to leave. It felt very awkward, but they were doing it in Latin. It was very cool.
It was epic.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't there. I wasn't. He's agreeing
there.
with me as if he was in the room.
I've been there, but not with you.
Okay, yeah,
So.
cool.
But yeah, no. So that's I like, and I think I'm going to call it. I think it's going to be the Astra Academy, or the Aspera Academy. I don't know. I'm stuck on this ad Astra per Astra.
Yeah, you are.
To the stars through hardship thing. I think I'll figure it out. But yeah, the university is
yeah, just like
the university is.
It's the thing with
cool
any
idea.
fantasy thing where something is just called the university far more often than it probably should. But I think it's signifying that there isn't a plethora of universities in a world where knowledge is in a, like, there isn't a public education system. There isn't enough people to have a ton of universities. You don't educate yourself beyond a degree, like a certain point.
Yeah.
We in modern America have a fuck ton of universities, but back in the day, you would just have, like, there was the university, or it'd be like the university of this city, and that's the only university there, and the next university is in the next major city, like 2 countries over, and that's it.
Now I'm getting into this whole idea of, like, the curriculum. It's like you are mandated to go through a Socratic or what's the adjective for Aristotle?
Aristotelian.
Aristotelian. Thank you. You have to go through an Aristotelian or a Socratic type of humanities-based education before you are even allowed to take, like, intro to chemistry.
No.
Like, you cannot, until you have done serious ethical work.
We're not going to let you get anywhere near the type of advanced research that led us to creating the tear.
Right.
That's a good little note to add on the end there.
Yeah, just little stuff. But
cool. Well, that's that. So let's move on to a little lightning round here. I'll go first with my lightning round.
Do it.
Okay. So my idea was to take the political and the religious and merge them a little bit by creating a sacred space and saying, this is the sacred space where some important figure of, like, the major religion and a messiah type figure met with the king. And the king made it into a sacred space and made a big deal because they're trying to inextricably link themselves to say, I was friends with him. So
funny.
This
to
is
legitimize themselves.
Yeah, it's very much like the book that Ethan bought for me once, Jesus and the Disinherited, about the Romans, like, taking Christianity and using it. And like, well, this is a political tool for us now,
right?
And kind of taking that and just saying, well, this is a space that was just where they happened to meet the one time they met. There wasn't actually anything more to it. They just happened to be crossing paths, and the king's just like, well, that is now a sacred space forever. We're going to make a temple to it. We're going to make it a big deal. This is because we are both titans of the world, and it's not at all what it is. It just
I'm imagining 2 gigantic statues like the Argonath in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Where it's like them shaking hands and there's a river under it or something.
Something like that, but it's really just like they walked by each other on a hiking trail, and he goes, oh, hello. And he goes, oh, hi. And that was it. But all right.
I think that's great.
That's my lightning round. Your turn. Round.
So going back to my theory day, started thinking again about the tabernacle when Moses and the Hebrew starting over. I started thinking about the tabernacle when the Jews were wandering in the desert, and they carried the Holy of Holies around with them. And basically they would set up tent, they would set up camp, and then wherever they put the Holy of Holies, that would become the holiest place in the world, the center of God.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, in a polytheistic world where the gods are real, nomadic peoples physically carrying their gods in like genie jars. And so the sacred space is wherever they happen to stop and let the god out.
Like a fucking dog?
Like a dog or a genie or something like that, and then it sort of creates this space, and then they do some ritual to contain it again and move on. And make it so the world is volatile, it's not safe, whatever, they have to keep moving. They're being hunted, I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, a literal, like literally this is God's house.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what stuck for you, Ethan?
Honestly, I really like my idea at first, but you making it the university was fucking incredible. Like that, it captured everything that I was trying to do with it.
Yeah.
Like very succinctly, very cleanly, beautifully, like exactly what I wanted from it. So that's 100% what stuck for me.
Okay.
Like I will remember the university for a long time.
Okay, cool.
What about you?
It's none of our actual ideas. It was this subtle conversation we had at the beginning where I brought up the I think the roadside shrines. You brought up the temple to the little shrines of the Daedra. It's the small sacred spaces that we really didn't speak to a lot because they don't make for necessarily the big ideas we could talk about for 15 minutes each.
Right.
But we gave them quick mentions throughout, and the well idea I threw out there is like this.
Love the well idea. That's so cool.
Just anything that's like a small sacred space that is it's a great world building beat, and we had it recently in the game that I was running where where one of our players went into a little shrine, and I was like, what? I guess I'm going to make up what the religion feels like in this shrine to make this a sacred space. And
me, I was the player.
It was not you, it was Rachel.
Oh, right, the other one.
You've also did this before where you went into a little shrine in a room that I didn't know was going to be there.
You also made it up.
And we made it up, and it was a beautiful moment, and it worked. It was this small room above a clinic.
Yeah.
Because it was somebody worshiping Bahamut, and you're looking for a place to go. And I was like, okay, well, we'll make a shrine here that's a small little spot.
Right.
And just those small intimate spaces that create a great world building beat, and they create a very intimate personal moment, but they are passing. It is not a place you can go back to a lot. It's just you go there, you have the thing, and you move on, as opposed to a sacred space that feels like a more central point or a bigger focal point. Like we talked about the idea that the Agadra was a background thing, but it's a big background thing, and I want the back. I'm thinking about the thing that it's not even in the background. It's in the foreground for a beat, and then it's out of sight.
Yeah.
And that I kind of like.
I love that. And it's so reflective of the way religion manifests in our world, in our normal world, right? Whereas, we often think of, because we see the glitz and glam of the Catholic Church, of the gigantic statues to Buddha, of the gigantic temples, right?
Yeah.
Most religious activity doesn't occur in these places.
It's small. It's somebody... It's my dad with his Bible on his toilet every morning.
Right.
Like that's a sacred space for him.
Right. It is little places where people come, and it's these old rugs and these old statues, and they're right. Like it is a very, I don't mean profane, but it feels much more mundane.
Yeah. It's mundane.
Right. It's not profane. It is explicitly sacred, but it's not as... it's not like a St. Peter's, right? Or it's not like the Sistine Chapel. That's what we often think of it as, but that's not the way most religion is practiced in the world. It's a dinner table.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, that's what stuck for us. Let us know what stuck for you.
Emails in the show notes.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.